Hi, everyone. This is Michael Conan representing the TooMedToo's Star Wars Network. We've got your fix. And this is the Bacta tank, which means that this is the wrong thing to have up there. There you go. That's what happens when you have 5 or 6 different shows and you're a network of one. You kind of get a little bit lost sometimes. But this is here in the United States. It is the last day of August, and August is Australia month because, as you know, if you've been sticking along with the program and the network, celebration's canceled, so we can't have fun with our friends from Australia. They can't come here to visit us, so I decided to bring them to us however I could. And some of them have been friends we've known for a while, and other ones are new friends, and this happens to be one of our new friends, Chris Fresh. Chris, how are you doing?
Hello there, everyone. Hey, dude, how's things?
I'm
doing good.
Things are good.
Like, it's technically September 1st, but we won't call out the technicality of me being the Aussie on there on September 1st. But no, you're doing a good thing, man. Like, it's I think a lot of Star Wars fans have been a bit bummed this month that their celebration plans didn't go ahead, and perhaps there's not a lot of info or stuff sort of kicking about really at the moment. So I think stuff like you do, and you're really good at promoting fellow podcasters and getting info like that out there. I've noticed there's been a few podcasts like it's the community that's really actually picked up the slack and put content out there for those that sort of feel like they need a bit of a Star Wars pick-me-up. So I appreciate what you're doing.
I mean, yeah, it's I appreciate that you say that. All I do is I listen to way too many podcasts, and way too much time involved in podcasts. But I'm one of those people that Steele's coming on later on tonight. He hates it because I'm a ×2 person.
I don't know how you do that. You ×2 savages.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it took a while to get the English, the UK, and the Australians down. Those I had to drop back down, but yeah, that's so. You just get used to it. It's kind of like sometimes you can deal with it, sometimes you can't. It's, I guess I equate it to reading. Some people read at certain paces versus others. Some people can listen. I've worked in restaurants my entire life, so when I used to do restaurant management or be in bars, I'd be in the office counting money, have a server talking to me, eavesdropping on the people outside the office, trying to figure out what they're trying to do and get away with. So, I think all those things just kind of come playing together.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like we're talking about communities coming together and stuff. And as much as I love giving Steele, or the Colonel, as I love to call him, a lot of crap, it's a very Aussie thing to do, to give each other a hard time. His podcasts, I think, really resonated with a lot of Star Wars fans, and like linked a lot of Brits, Australians, and Americans and Canadians and stuff all together. And I don't know that it was his intention. It certainly probably wasn't his intention in the beginning, but the Steeleverse sort of spun out all these other podcasts and all these other communities, and it really helped grow to something where I'm sure you can say the same thing. I've made some really good friends, like people that I consider personal friends, out of just the podcasting community, and the Star Wars podcasting community in particular. And I think in that regard, me personally, I'll always be grateful to him for that. Like, a story I'm not sure I've really told before was I can be, if you listen to my podcast, Geek Dudes, I sound very over the top and everything like that, but I can be quite introverted, particularly in person. And I always avoid events. And in Melbourne, we've got the Star Wars fan club. That's the oldest Star Wars fan club in the world. And they had an event last year where they were just going to have a lot of characters dressed up in cosplay. There was going to be a legit real size X-wing that was on display in the center of our city, and there was a talk about a pop culture talk on George Lucas and Star Wars at a cinema there. And I turned up there and didn't know anyone, didn't know anybody there. And I'm sure you know her, Michael, Catherine Neen, who'd be well known to a lot of Star Wars fans. Catherine was there, and I went up and introduced myself to her. And she sort of took me under her wing, and I had somebody to sit next to and, you know, somebody to talk to, and it wasn't awkward for me at all. And number one, to make me not feel awkward at a public event is an amazing thing. And I think you guys would feel that way going to a celebration. You might be traveling from out of state and not know a single person when you get there, but you can turn up and feel like you've got an army of friends.
Yeah, well, I mean, last year was my first celebration, and I'll tell you about my start into this part of the fandom in a little while, but just not to get too far off topic. But yeah. I only knew a few people, like personally, and there was only one or two of those people that I knew very well, and then everyone else was just kind of like, "Oh, I've met you before," when, you know, the New York people got together, and you know, so I kind of had that with me. But there was a bunch of other people from Twitter that I didn't know, but I was still kind of new to Twitter. And it was a little bit off-putting because I had these people that, like, I felt very confident with, like, that I could say or talk to and do anything. And other people, it's like, yeah, you know, I kind of know you. And I sometimes can rub people the wrong way because I don't have a very good filter. And, you know, the other thing, too, on Twitter, I don't put LOL after things, so people think I'm just being an asshole when, you know, they can't tell my sarcasm in there. But, yeah, so, I mean, it's tough. And, you know, I can be a very outgoing person, but a lot of times if I don't know people, I'm kind of introverted because I want to try and get the feel. I don't want to – it's subconsciously, I don't want to put myself out there and then turn out that the person I'm talking to is an asshole and I just wasted half my night. You know, when, you know, whatever it is. But yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. And, you know, like with Steele, and there, you know, here's Emily. You know, I know being in New York City when they had the get-togethers, and it would be Rogue One or Raj would fly in because, you know, Raj is always flying from California, or used to fly from California to New York pre-baby. And, you know, the get-togethers would be around whenever he was here. And so, you know, meeting people that way. And, you know, I started listening to you guys because of Emily. And, you know, just kind of branched off from there. And then, you know, Emily knows of you guys, I believe, because of Steele, or that's how it may have come around. You know, so Steele was really like the catalyst for a lot of our group or our friends that, you know, are now friends or follow each other or listen to each other. So, I mean, that's 100% correct.
Yeah. But look, I don't want to give him too much credit. He'll give himself that credit. And for Emily to say Steele's the best, I think we just need that to tone that down to maybe second best.
Well, we'll see what she says, because he's the second part of the doubleheader today. So, you know, we did we're going off with a bang, having, you know, two people from the Australian podcast community that are, you know, some of the biggest names out there, as far as I know. Anyways.
Yeah, the yin and yang of Australian podcasting.
Yeah, that would he does loosen up quite a bit, though, whenever the few times I've heard him on your show. So, you know, he can have a good time from time to time. No, he's good, and as I said, like his podcast is huge, and, you know, from an Australian standpoint, you know, it's, as I said, it opened up a door that a lot of Australians were able to travel over to Celebration and feel comfortable, and like that's an amazing thing to be able to do. And hopefully in 2 years' time, even more Australians will make the trip, and even more of the community will sort of all get together, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of hangovers, but it'll be a good time. And then you were saying Star Walking. I actually had last week, I had Shane Morrissey on.
Yep,
who
love
is
Shane.
One of the founders. And I made a couple new friends that way. Melissa, let's see. Oh yeah, Melissa Quinton. She's one of them. There's a couple other people that have been following along.
And look,
so,
and to give them a plug, like it's the best $10 you'll spend. Like, you know, like what a bargain. You get a Star Walking newsletter and stuff. Like it's and recently they just sent out a little gift just to say thank you to everybody, and stuff like that. Like really is appreciated. I know they've made a lot of changes and they've freshened things up. So yeah, no, they're awesome.
Yeah, and if you're in the U.S., go ahead and give them a follow. It's only going to cost you probably $6. So you know you can't beat a bargain like that.
Yeah.
Now, so how did your Star Wars? And we don't have to talk about Star Wars. We can talk about whatever you want. You know, it's just
yeah. Sure.
Star Wars is kind of like what brought us together. You know, that's what anybody that comes on. You know, I tell them it's not an interview. It's just kind of a chat because I talk way too much and go off on way too many tangents to you know, call it an interview. And I've had people on here. We've talked for a half hour, 45 minutes before Star Wars even comes up. You know, which is kind of the same thing that happens when we have, you know, get-togethers in this region or at Celebration. It's like Star Wars is kind of why we're there, but that's not why we're there. We're there for each other. So, yeah. But what brought you into Star Wars?
So Star Wars was always something I liked. Like I was born in 1979, so Return of a Jedi was an early cinema experience for me. I've got vague memories of being freaked out by Salacious Crumb and Jabba the Hutt, and being such a baby about it that I convinced Dad to buy me a lightsaber as we got out of the cinemas. Great trick. And then, like, it sort of disappeared for me. Like, I was Star Wars toys when I was little. Like I had a Snaggletooth, but I was a He-Man kid. Like to me, Star Wars toys were too small, and you know, I was into He-Man, or I was into wrestling, or I was into Ghostbusters. So I was into Mask. I didn't have enough money to be into Transformers, but like it. So I was into all of that stuff. But for me, where my Star Wars fandom really picked up was when I went into high school. So we're talking the early 90s. One of my best friends, his brothers, Star Wars never went away from. Like they loved Star Wars and they had all the toys, and we'd just get talking and they were like, you know, how cool was this when this happened in Star Wars? And I was remembering it and I was like, you're right. I really like these movies, and I'd go to the video store and hire them and start watching them. And it would kind of become a constant that like if I had to go hire movies and watch movies, you know, on the school holidays or anything like that, it would be the Star Wars trilogy. And then what really sort of like strapped a rocket to it was when Powers of the Force 2 came out in the mid-90s. I can still remember, because it's not like today where we're seeing reveals on the internet constantly or pre-orders and stuff like this. I walked into Toys R Us and had no idea that I was about to walk down an aisle and see Star Wars toys on the shelves again. And I just looked at it and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And sure, now you can look at it in hindsight and go, those figures were way too buff. And it was ridiculous. But like at that time, I was like, what? Look at this, like they're Star Wars toys and I can buy them. And I always call Star Wars my nerd line in the sand, because I think as you're sort of transitioning from childhood to adolescence, there's a bit of pressure, or there was back in the day, of you need to give up toys, don't watch cartoons anymore, you know, get into sports. You know, hormones are going to mean that you're going to get into get into wanting to chase people around. You know, like you're sort of meant to move, and being into nerd stuff was considered uncool. And I think seeing those figures made me go, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I'm just going all in on this. And then it turned into buying the toys, getting some Star Wars T-shirts. And obviously, when they started ramping up towards the special editions, Star Wars stuff started to pick up and was around. And I like it. Just it was one of my main things. Like probably Star Wars and professional wrestling were the two big things in my life, and have continued to be. Right through. I'd go on to work, like to wrestle and then work in the wrestling industry. Didn't work in Star Wars, and which is good because I haven't had Star Wars ruined for me like I had wrestling ruined for me. But yeah, so like Star Wars has been a consistent, and I think it's never, like, from that point forward, it's never gone away.
I mean, that's very similar to me. I was born in '78, so I was born into Star Wars. Older brother, older cousins, and but being at that age, by the time I was 5 years old, they stopped making Star Wars. So the toys you were getting left over when you're 6 and 7, by then in the mid '80s, that's when Thundercats were coming out, and
Yep.
all your other Voltron and Transformers, Ninja Turtles. So like for toys and action figures, I don't think there's ever been a better time to be alive. And I would have not just light side and dark side. It would be Imperials versus Jedi versus Transformers. And it just depended on what day it was on who won. It wasn't really like there was never a set time that this group won or this faction won. It was just whoever ended up winning. I don't, and all of my toys are still at my parents' house.
Yep.
I have no idea what I have. And so, like, I know that I did at one point in time have pop-up R2, but I don't know if I still have it. I don't even, if I do have it, it's not worth anything because it was probably blown up or, thrown against the wall or whatever it was. So, I mean, that's just where it was amazing. And then kind of like the same thing, I watched the movies and I don't like reading. So I didn't do any of the books or legends. By the time Star Wars came back out, I was out of high school and I was at the bar scene. I cared more about, going out and having fun and getting wasted. I still would watch the movies, but I never got back into the collecting or anything like that. I got back into the collecting a couple years ago at New York Comic Con, walking around with Araj and Pappas. And then I came home and I hit up eBay and it's kind of been wonderful since then.
From a certain point of view.
Yeah, my point of view, not my girlfriend's point of view. Although with the COVID thing, like I usually record in the bedroom, but since she's now home with COVID, I kind of moved to the living room. But she does let me keep these toys behind me, and they do get to stay up. I rearranged them one day and kind of swapped them out, and she yelled at me because she didn't like the color scheme I had, so I had to put them back the way they were. But I can deal with that. That's if that's the worst thing that happens is not being able to rotate them.
Yeah, I've got a full room, plus my Star Wars stuff is in the lounge room, like it's the classy toys, and everything else is out here. But have you gone down the Hot Toys path?
No.
Oh,
I'm stuck on Black Series, and I tell everyone I don't collect Funko Pops. I mean, I have about 150 of them, but that's just because it's Star Wars merchandise. But I don't collect them. Because if I collected Funko Pops, I'd have tons of different ones, like when the A-Team ones come out or Transformers or Ninja Turtles. But I don't get any of those. I just get Star Wars ones. So that's how I justify not being a Funko collector. But every once in a while, I decide I'm going to sell them all and go for the vintage line. And then they come out with something new, and it's like, oh, I'm just going to buy this next set. Or with the Black Series, they have they redid the boxes and put out all the new Rebels ones. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll get these ones, and then I'll stop because they're just doing it for the Rebels ones. No, all of the new ones are coming out like that. So, then it was, do I sell the old ones if they're going to start repurposing and, remanufacturing all the old ones? Or are they going to get all new boxes? And then, do you sell the old ones? Are those ones going to be actually worth money someday? I mean, never like the way that the vintage line is, because people are going to hold on to them, and they're not, they're $20, they're not $2. You're not blowing them up, or, it doesn't matter if you lose them.
I've got so much stuff that I need to sell that I kind of have this weird fantasy of like the garage just catches on fire and I don't have to think about it, and it becomes oh well, like c'est la vie. But yeah, it's the Black Series. I've sworn that I'm out, and then occasionally there'll be something, and it's like I'm back in, and it's like, well, if I'm going to be in, I'm in. But then it's like, no, I don't want to be in. I need to be out. Like I've tried going, I'm only going to collect the Jedi, and just that is it. And now I think in my head it's like I'm only going to collect figures from the Mandalorian. But it's all a load of crap. I'll cave and something will happen. But it is. It's an interesting time as a collector because there's a lot of frustration out there in terms of distribution and ability and being able to get stuff and scalpers and everything like that. And it sort of seems for a lot of people collecting sometimes isn't fun anymore. And I think if it gets to the point that it's not fun, you've got to try and find your best way of stopping. If stuff's not available, if it's not hitting the shelves, there's an episode of Steel Wars, which was the first Force Friday before Force Awakens, and that's actually you can hear me and Steel meeting for the first time, and we're at Toys R Us, and we got in there, and there was nothing. Like there was legitimately like nothing to get. I don't know what it was like in America. But I had a shopping list of I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this. I was even going to get the Black Series TIE Fighter. And it was like my goals and my dreams and what I went in there and what I was able to walk out with were two very different things. And I don't think they've quite gotten figure distribution right in the stores since that. It's like after every movie, it's sort of not worked out. Like you can go to Myer, which is a department store in Melbourne, and seriously, I've taken a photo of it. There's about 40 vintage series Snokes sitting on the shelf, and it's like, ugh, what a mess.
Well, I can just imagine the trouble I have, and I'm in New York City, so like I walk a mile, and then after I walk that mile, I have 3 Targets in downtown Brooklyn that are within a mile walk from each other. So, I can get around that way. It's actually kind of difficult to go around collecting in New York City, even if you do have a car, because the amount of time you're going to spend trying to get through traffic and try and park or whatever. So you got to take the train. So, just to go a mile, it's like, okay, I can, walk for 30 minutes, or I can wait for the train for 20 minutes and take it for 10 minutes. So it ends up being the same. So it's just very time consuming, and it's not very convenient. It would be like if you were driving 100 miles from store to store, even though the stores are really close. But when I went out for a Triple Force Friday, and it was like I was at Targets, and they're like, we don't have anything. Employees didn't even know that what I was talking about. They didn't even, I don't know if we have anything in back. And it's just gotten to the point that the hunt became so, I can't even say it wasn't like, it was just, not that it wasn't fun. It was just such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
That like, it's just like, you know what? I'm just going to order online, and I'm going to order a case. The Black Series are coming in. It's coming in as 6 or 7. I'm just going to order the case. I have an extra 1 or 2 that I can either trade or give away, or, you can't sell them because they're not, worth anything till a couple years down the line. Chances are, unless they're the Funko Pops, and, they're still not distributing them right with the Funkos. So Funkos put them on sale. And I signed, I just kept hitting refresh. I signed in. I clicked the 6 that I wanted. I clicked on the credit card thing. My information came up. I hit it. My credit card or my address was in there. I hit it. Sold out. So like there could have been, I did have to say that I was human and check in. But it was just that like the amount of time. So in 20 seconds that they already sold out, and then trying to find them and everything. I ended up getting them, and I got them all for cost. The only one I don't have is the Boba Fett, and I'm waiting to see what happens with that, because that's selling right now for like $200 on eBay or $150 on eBay.
Are we talking the carbonized one, or are you talking the exclusive
Funko
one from last year? The Funko Pop.
The Funko from
Yeah.
That just came out a couple days ago.
Wow, it's going for that much already.
Yep. Because the only place you could buy it was at the Funko store. All the other ones, they sold them at the Funko store. But then Target had one, Amazon had one, GameStop had one. So everybody else had them. And they called me from GameStop. I'm not a collector, but they called me at GameStop to let me know that they had some in if I wanted them. And I went there and, they were like, what do you want? One? I said, how many do you have? They said, we got 4. I said, okay, I'll take all 4. They said, okay. And if it was other people, they try and like stop them because they don't want, I'm not putting them on eBay or whatever. I'm, once again, I don't collect them, but I'm in a Funko collectors group. So I was like, hey, who wants it? Okay, fine. So, you give it to them at cost and whatever shipping is, instead of charging them extra money. Yeah, I could have made an extra $10 or $20 on each one on eBay, but it's like that kind of defeats the purpose of, having friends that are collectors and looking out for each other. I mean, in my eyes anyways.
Yeah, I think collectors trying to help each other out are really good. Like I've had Luke Cruiser from the Bad Motivators recently offer to help me out with some stuff that we can't get in Australia and stuff. Like most people for the most part are really cool. There's just a few money hungry people that sort of, I guess it sucks the fun out of it, but that's always gone on. Like there's always been scalpers, and short stock and stuff. Like you think of things like the Cabbage Patch dolls in the 80s or Tickle Me Elmo, which is probably the big famous one from the 90s. People were trampling each other to get this sort of stuff. So there's always been that. Like I think what we've all probably realized is when Toys R Us went down, even though I used to complain about Toys R Us all the time, it was a pretty big loss here in Australia just to have a big one-stop toy store just go. It's made it a lot harder to collect if you wanted to go into a bricks and mortar store.
Well, that's where like I was saying earlier, with the convenience of it, it's just going around trying to find it and whether or not. I mean, when the Revan Funko Pop came out, so I had a bunch of stuff Black Series ordered before COVID, and they were supposed to be delivered to GameStop during COVID, which didn't happen. So they already had my money. But the way GameStop works is the stores are separate entities from online. So I had to order them online to get them. And then they came in at GameStop in the brick and mortar, and I said, no, I don't want them anymore. So they just took my money and rolled it over to whatever I wanted. And at that time, the Revan Funko Pops, you couldn't get online. You had to get them in the store. So I was like, all right, fine. What money do I have left over? Give me 8 of them. And I could have turned around and sold them for $70, $80 that first day when they came out. But I held on to them, and people and my friend groups or collectors groups that want them, I sold them for them at cost. I still have 3 or 4 of them left, and before I put them on eBay, I'll see if any friends on Facebook or Twitter or anything want them, and I'll give them to them at cost. Whatever I paid, or I paid $12 for them, I'll sell them to 15 plus shipping, so it'll be $22, $23, or whatever it happens to be. Or if you want one, it'll be probably $75 by the time I send it to you. But but if nobody wants it, then I'm going to put them on eBay, and they're going on eBay for $50. I'll just put it on there for $40 and sell them in one day, and be like, sorry, because
Michael, with that attitude, Pappas would be disgusted in you. Pappas would be disgusted in that attitude.
He would not be happy. But, well, then again, I'm turning the quick buck. Do I want to wait for weeks and weeks or months, or do I want to make that money today? So I might have a spot on there. But yeah, Pappas was on here. The other actually came on. I have another show, the Septic Tank. So this one's kind of where I talk to people and whatever. And then afterwards, I just started. My production quality was horrible, and I would just cut it and just throw it up as a podcast. And I was like, well, it doesn't really make for good TV, especially like later on if I'm opening a box or whatever. So then I just doing this part, and then later on when people come on, cutting that off. But I'm going to start doing it actually make it into it more of a podcast. But that one that I do on Saturday nights, it's kind of a free for all. Anybody wants to come on, and I've had quite a few that I don't put up. It's recorded, it goes up live, and then I delete them off of Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is, and then they just kind of go, okay, because I had one of my friends on here showing her toys, and they were different toys.
I was going to say, but I knew where you were going with that, and I was like, yeah. I bet you're not talking action figures.
Yeah, there were different toys that I don't have, and it's like, let me tell you, the Yoda one, very disturbing. I'm still disturbed by that.
No, you can't do that to Yoda. Like, I mean, that's not right.
They turned Yoda into a pickle with ears. So,
well, you're the first person to lure me onto video. I with a face like this, I have strictly been an audio podcast person. So it's definitely not my comfort zone, but this is the new way. Everybody's I think doing video now and YouTube now, and sort of offering the podcast option at a later date if they sort of want to turn it into it, if they feel they can sort of turn it into audio form.
Well, that's like I told you. So before Solo came out, I was watching a lot of YouTube, and like a lot of the stuff I was like, these people are fucking idiots. I don't even know why anybody's watching them. How do they have all these viewers? They're just making shit up, or they're just like they don't know anything about Star Wars. Just like I was just like, I don't understand this, and I was like, I'm gonna start making videos, and I'm gonna do a better job than them, and people are gonna watch me because not because I'm good, just because I know more than these other people. And that was like, but the main reason is I wanted to make Star Wars friends. Like, I don't have any Star Wars friends. And I started doing it, and it was like I put out two videos, I think. And somebody hits me up on Twitter, and they're like, hey, we're getting together. Do you want to come meet us? And I was like, no idea who this person is. I've never listened to a podcast before. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, I'm going there, and I tell my girlfriend, I was like, I use that like date out thing. I was like, call me like after I'm there for like a half hour or whatever, just to make sure everything's okay or whatever. Because I'm expecting, like some serial killers or, like
harvesting your kidneys.
Yeah. Like or walking in, it's like, a bunch of like the old sweaty sitting around or whatever. And I walk in, it's Johnny Grasso, Pappas, the guys from Cal Swift, Fernando, Emily was there, a bunch of people that I don't even remember just because I was so overwhelmed. And, I was just like, boom, I made 2 videos. I wanted to make Star Wars friends. And like, I don't think I could have done any better with the group of friends that I got introduced to. And, it just kind of, grew from there. And then I kept making videos, and they're not good. I look at them, and they're still not good. I was trying, all I can say is I was trying hard. I don't have any computer experience. I don't know how to edit. I don't know how to do any production. I took me forever to learn how to make thumbnails. Then I got burnt out. I tried to do, I did what Steele and Haas are doing with their year by calendar, except I was doing it daily. So I'd go through the book, and then every day, so I'd have every year to go through, and then every day, whatever happened on that day, and I'd make a video for it. So my idea was it was going to be really quick, but it was taking me like 4 or 5 hours a day to do it, plus going to school, plus working. I just burnt myself out after like 2 years. I was just like, fuck it. I'm done with YouTube. I'm not doing it again. And I went to Celebration last year, and I was like, this is what I want. Like, I want to be able to like talk to friends. And that's kind of how this came around. I mean, I think this is number 32, but I'd been doing it for 6 months before I started numbering them, and gave it a name. It was just kind of live chats and everything. So, I mean, it's just coming together and meeting great people. And, there's, all different walks of life, all different kind of people. The only thing that, my thing is just if you can, honestly be respectful. And, that's the only thing I really, really care about when it comes down to it. Like you and I have a lot of things in common. I've since I think I went to a psychiatrist the first time when I was 8 years old. I've been on and off of medication, in and out of the hospital, in and out of rehab, a bunch of times. I think I'm going on 5 years or 6 years sober now.
Congratulations.
Or not drinking, I should say. But thank you. But yeah, it was just, it was just one of those things that, all the times that I tried it, it was just, like if you don't really want to try, you're not going to do it. If you're doing it for other people, you can fake it. But, unless you really want, like you come to that point, like, I don't know. But yeah, so that's just, it's kind of where that is.
Yeah. Like with Geek Dudes, it was legitimately just an excuse for, there were 4 of us originally, and it was an excuse just for us to hang out every fortnight, and we just, recording a podcast talking about geeky stuff was the reason that we were gathering. But it was sort of like, because we were all scattered throughout Melbourne, it was a reason to come together. And it still is, like, particularly for Mitch and I, who have really busy lives. We probably wouldn't catch up as much as we'd like, but Geek Dude sort of creates that thing. We can't in Melbourne at the moment because we're in stage 4 lockdown, and we can't leave we can't go 5 kilometers out of our house zone. So trust me, that's not very far. I think maybe 3 mile roughly. So yeah, so we're trapped at home at the moment, and we're doing it over Skype, which is not our preferred way of doing it. I sort of hate podcasting like that, but everybody does it. It's the modern way of doing it. But I think Geek Dudes kind of shocks people initially, because the way we sort of view it is there's a million podcasts talking about the latest news in geek. Like if you want to hear a really good podcast that gathers all the news talking about geeky stuff, go listen to the Sith List. It's fantastic. They do a great job. Who wants to hear Chris Fresh and Dirty Uncle Mitch and Jonesy sitting there just regurgitating the same geek news that you've heard on the Sith List? Although we were around a lot longer than the Sith List, but but there are plenty of podcasts like that. You can listen to Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin do an awesome version of a geek podcast. You don't need to listen to us. But I think sort of inserting our inappropriate humor that makes us giggle, and sort of discussing our personal lives, and drilling Jonesy about his dating life, which just came from me being bored and destructive at the start of every episode, and it's sort of becoming a theme. What I sort of found was people started getting invested in hearing about that stuff more than they were in hearing our hot take on Batman. Which is kind of funny, because sometimes we want to give our hot take on Batman. It's like people, I think, now are going, we don't want to hear about that. We want to hear about what Jonesy's gotten up to with Lady J. Shut up, you idiots. So yeah, Mitch and I just did a geek podcast where it was out, and it was like, I think a lot of people would have heard that and be very disappointed that the content was clean and only talked about what happened at DC Fandom. But yeah, the tricky thing with that is, you can't market to that. You can't market that podcast to people. I can't say to people, listen to this podcast. It's an awesome podcast for geek news. And I don't want to say to people, come listen to this podcast if you want to hear about these people's sex life. Or if you want to hear Mitch break down the lyrics to "We Didn't Start the Fire." It's sort of it's more of a word of mouth thing that we rely on people going, hey, this is pretty funny, you should check it out, and like-minded people sharing it. But I've never once really cared about our listenership. Like, we have a lot of listeners, and that's great. And a credit to people like you, Michael, and like Canto by Dispatch and Steel and stuff, and Blue Harvest and those, and Rogue One, Pop Culture Hour and the Sith List and the Bad Motivators, all those people that have sort of shared our sort of name out there. Like, we're appreciative of that, but I don't really care. Like, I just enjoy getting to hang with my friends and record and chill. We're never going to get sponsorship. Hasbro's never going to send us a big box of toys to promote because we're going to be influencers. Like we're not in it. We're not in it for that game. But I also don't think there's a market for it. Maybe I'm wrong. Like you're doing well. Like you're trying to find your niche in the Star Wars community, your niche in the Star Wars market. But I don't envy you either. Like I was talking about the Canto Bight Dispatch. Like it's hard to be a single topic podcast. When you go, we're going to be talking Star Wars and nothing but Star Wars. And then the Mandalorian season 2 trailer just doesn't come. And there's no news floating around. And, I hear a lot of people like they're going, well, there's been all this casting news with Ahsoka and Sabine and, Katie Sackhoff and stuff. And it's like, yep, I love Corey and Noah, and I believe them when they drop news and stuff. But we've got to remember that hasn't come from Lucasfilm, so we talk about it like it's fact, but it's not. Yeah. I'm sure it's true, but like we haven't had that confirmation. So yeah, I don't envy anybody that has to do a particular topic podcast because it makes it really hard when there's not a lot going on. And let's face it, like we're not getting movies for a few years. So, and with COVID, you're hoping that there's not a delay in Mando season 3 and Kenobi and stuff like that. But it's gonna get awfully tricky. We're gonna have to dig into the pockets of what we love about the original trilogy or the sequel trilogy or the prequel trilogy, because I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of new stuff really to talk about. We were in a golden age from the Disney sale up until now, but I think it's sort of we're going to get bursts of stuff and then nothing for a very long time.
Well, that's where like this has kind of evolved to. When I came back and started doing it after Celebration, it was like, okay, I'm just gonna. I put out an invitation to 10 people. Like, who wants to come on and talk? Anybody come on and talk? And it wasn't really like an invitation. It was just kind of like, hey, who wants? You know what I'm saying? It's like It wasn't an actual invitation, like where I hit you up and said, hey, do you want to come on in this time? We can schedule it like this. It was just kind of a shock and blessing. Anybody want to come on and talk? And there'd be sometimes it'd be me by myself for 2 hours. There'd be other times where there'd be 10 people trying to get on and talk. And I was like, this isn't really working. And I was, trying to do whatever was breaking news and everything like that. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pick one person and we're just going to talk. And, it's Star Wars that brought us together, but we're not only here because of Star Wars. And, when I had Blue Bantha Milk on, I had those two guys. I think we talked for like a half hour, 45 minutes before we really talked about, like, got into Star Wars. Like, we talked about how we got into fandom a little bit, but, I've had Pizza and Parsecs on. They're a couple that do it. And, the same thing, we talked about pizza for a half hour before we even talked about Star Wars. So it's like, it's not like a Star Wars interview. It's a Star Wars channel because that's how we all know each other. But, I do deep dives into books and go through and, and I do it for my friends or, there's some people in the chat right now, like Pauline Harvey or Kat was in here, and they watch my videos where I go through the visual dictionary page by page and I read it and I talk about it and I give my opinions on, a lot of times it's like, why the fuck are they telling me that her raincoat is water resistant? Who needs to know that? They can't find something better to tell me.
No, I find that charming in that I just think Pablo's bored and is just seeing who's paying attention.
That could sorry, that could be it too. But yeah, it's like, so for me to go through the book, it takes, if I do it for a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, like, at each chapter, half chapter, it takes me 20 times to doing it. So, that could be 2 or 3 months. And it's like, okay, that book's done, that's done now. But it also makes me read the books because, my RDS is definitely with books. I have about 200 Star Wars books, and none of them are, and probably 5 or 10 of them are novels. All the rest of them are. I have some sitting right here. The Geektionary, encyclopedia, everything you need to know. Down here, the other ones I was looking at for droids, another 6 or 7 books just on droids that I was using today. But I picked up some of my books that I've had on my list for maybe 2 or 3 years. With no celebration, I kind of dipped into that fund, and you know, they've been on the list for so long because I don't know what they're worth, but they're selling on eBay, or the price is $500 or $700 or $900. They've just been on my list for so long, and it's like I got the Dressing the Galaxy book. It's $500. I picked it up for $100. It's like, who's going to pay $100 for a Star Wars book? Well, I did. It's a lot better than the $500. Or I picked up I paid, I think, $200 for it. The little Sith book. It's $50, but I got it with the holocron, so it was an extra $150 or whatever. But that sells
for
what that goes
for now.
Are
you talking the holocron with the book that electronically comes out?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
I better go dust that thing off. It's just sitting in my garage because I had nowhere to put it. I've got all those ones.
Yeah, I mean, that's what let's see, what is it? Sith holocron.
Yeah, because they did a Jedi one, a Sith one, an Imperial one, a Bounty Hunter one.
So that's not the right one. Let's see. So Sith. See, this is where it's like, this is why I need to edit, because I do this shit sometimes where it's like, if somebody's just going to sit here and watch it,
while you're searching for something.
Yeah. But I'm so far behind. Like, I guess I'm technically a Disney shill now because I get books for free. But I'm 2 books behind on reviews for them. And I have Thrawn coming out tomorrow too. So I have 3 books I need to review, do reviews for by tomorrow. Because one was due last week, one was due the week before.
I don't know how you do it. Like, you're doing this, you listen to 8,000 podcasts, you're reading books. I'm exhausted just thinking about it. Like, I enjoy the Thrawn stuff, so I'll listen to the audio book of that because I can put my headphones in at work. But if I wasn't able to do that, I wouldn't find time for most of the stuff I listen to.
My listening has gone down quite a bit since without working. $700 on eBay right now for the one.
Wow.
500.
That's crazy. I had no idea. Sitting on a gold mine. Like it's funny with Star Wars books. I hadn't read a single Star Wars book until after I saw Revenge of the Sith, and I was bummed that there was no more Star Wars. And somebody said you should really read the Thrawn trilogy. Not the Thrawn. Is it the Thrawn trilogy? Heir to the Empire.
The original one, the Legends.
Yeah. The Zahn trilogy. And I remember reading them, and I felt that they genuinely felt like Star Wars, and I was really impressed. But I never really found other books that drew me in. I know it's very controversial. Some people love it, some people hate it. I really liked the Plagueis book. But I listened to the audiobook on that. I cheated. But out of the new books, I've found them fairly hit and miss. But so have you read every single book of the new canon apart from the 2 that's outstanding?
Yeah, I do audiobooks, but yeah. And then that's how I get through the audiobooks and everything like that. But it's that's one of the good things about I guess the blessed in New York City is if I get up and I walk the dog and I have waterproof earbuds or whatever, and so I get up, I put in a book and I walk the dog and get something to eat and take a shower and go to work. I mean, that's 2 hours right there. That's 2 hours I can do for podcasts or 2 hours I can do for a book. because I'm not big with listening to music. I love
yeah.
music, and I actually since I was telling you earlier, I think before we started, I just started streaming on Live It, and that's one of the things that you need to have. I need to talk to people. They need to be able to see me. There has to be music in the background, even if I'm playing a video game or whatever. Like everything has to be there so much. So it's like I started using Spotify. So I'm actually listening to a lot more music, and it's like, oh, excuse me. Woo. I I started using Spotify, and I'm like, I love this song. I love this band. Oh, I miss music. And, but I mean, I've never been a big, or I should say the last, 10 years since I've, maybe 15 years, been really big into music. I mean, I stopped listening to music probably the mid 2000s because I just didn't like anything. And everything after that or everything before that was classic rock or, whatever it was.
And it was WAP that's brought you back into music?
Yes, it was. I was like, wait, what's this song?
Heard it all before. I was just more like, I had to make sure my daughter did not hear. It was like, not that song. I don't mind a couple of years, listen away. I don't care what you listen to, but maybe not while you're 12. But yeah, we are spoiled for content. Like there's so many good podcasts and quality stuff out there. And then when you go into YouTube stuff, like I was never big into YouTube, but being a toy collector, I love Pixel Dan and Toy Galaxy with Dan Larson. Their channels are awesome. And if you don't mind retro gaming, there's Gaming Historian as well. Which is good. Like it's bad for my RDS in they inspire. It's like, you're sort of watching them and you just happen to have eBay open and you're scrolling on your phone and going, it's like, I never would have thought of that if I wasn't watching that. So it can be dangerous, but I also think it's hard in the modern age for things like cartoons and toys to sort of take off because kids now have video games and have YouTube and stuff. They don't really have a reason to consume like we used to consume. The idea that you sit there in front of a TV or the telly, to throw in a bit of my Aussie in there, you're sitting there in front of a telly and you're watching cartoons because there was nothing else to do. And then you're getting ads which are pumping into you action figures or dolls from the cartoons that you're watching. And then you're going shopping with your parents and you're seeing them and you're consuming them. That's how toys became, $1 billion industry in the 80s. It was ginormous. But now, like, all the kids I know of, they're not interested in what's going on TV. They'd rather watch YouTube Kids or, watch other kids opening toys or watching other people playing games, and as you said, you've got people now watching you play games. Like it's the new way of doing things. And I think as collectors, we've got to get our heads around that the toy industry is really going to struggle because it can never be the same because everything has changed. And like COVID's going to, like that's changing the game again. Like who knows where we're going to be at in a year's time. But certainly the way the industry is, we're demanding that they make us product, but the money is selling to kids, but the kids aren't interested. So we're trapped in this bad cycle.
And it's funny though, because what you were saying with, kids would rather watch other kids open up presents. It's like they get that gratification. Oh, wow, what do they get? And then it's just nonstop. It's like their own little Christmas, the whole time just, watching them open and open. Kind of like adults watching, trashy TV or, the Best Housewives or Great Housewives of Beverly Hills. I don't know. It is addictive. Yeah. My girlfriend watches that stuff and I'll catch myself watching it and I could care, I don't care about it. And all of a sudden it's like, wait, what did they hate? Why is that happening? What's going on? But yeah, it's just.
But
It's
that's why
just. It's,
that's why it's great when we get shows like, I really like Good Omens, people talking up The Boys. Like when we're still getting shows like that, because I used to begrudge reality TV because I felt it was a cheap way of people getting out of making real creative content. But you can't say that now. Like we're like, dude, last year we sat there and we watched a bounty hunter in Mandalorian armor fight off a heap of Trandoshans while an Ugnaught, Nick Nolte, was watching on, and he went in there and uncovered a baby Yoda. That it's easy to complain, but sometimes you need to remember just how spoilt we are. Like that was an all-time great Star Wars moment. We got the yin and yang. I've mentioned yin and yang twice. We got the yin and yang of Star Wars to me in the worst moment of Rey Palpatine. That's my opinion. And the best moment of the child. And what that shows is it doesn't really matter if not everything is for you. So I can go, The Rise of Skywalker didn't hit for me, and I love cutting a promo on it and being a dick about it. But at the end of the day, if it was great for somebody else, I'm happy about that because I had The Mandalorian, or I had The Last Jedi, which I loved. And I get a lot of people didn't like The Last Jedi. So like this and the other Star Wars movies, which I love, have not gone away. Remarkably, they are still there. It's funny that. So I think sometimes we've also all got to just chill because there'll be something we like. And it could be worse. You could be into DC movies. They're a disaster.
Yeah, I would. Well, they're picking up now. They're turning around. So they tell us.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I went to go see the Rise of Skywalker with Pappas and his crew, and I got out of there. He loved it. He thought it was great. He was all hyped up for it, and I was like, I really liked it, but there was just some things I didn't like. It didn't pull me out as much as you with Ray Palpatine. I know that just kind of ruined the movie for you.
The dead speak punched me right in the face. It's funny because Josh Chapman, who you had on of Star Wars Spelt Out, he grabbed our reactions afterwards, and I'm woozy. I was very unsure of what I just saw, and it's hard when you go to it because we get a big midnight screening, which Star Walking throw in. Shane Morrissey was actually very dapper. He was very well dressed at that. And like there's a big screening. You're caught up in the moment. It's exciting. It was my second screening where I was like, well, this isn't for me. I kept going, what? Like, huh? Like what? And I'm not saying there wasn't cool moments in the movie, but for me personally, it took away. I felt for me, it took away what they had built up in favor of bringing back a big bad from the past. Like I was all team Kylo as the Skywalker has finally done what no others, like what Darth Vader couldn't do. Kylo actually does it, and he's the big bad of the movie. And I kind of felt that they pushed out a little bit and didn't go for that. And then you're sort of going, Snoke. I was Snoke. I was every voice in your head, and it's like, so, okay, so Snoke was just some weird clone that means nothing, and now you're getting me started. And then, and then you have, the First Order are just a front. They're not the real fleet. The real fleet is underground in Exegol. So the First Order meant nothing. Snoke meant nothing, and Kylo meant nothing. And it was like, to me, I was like, ugh. I use a wrestling equation in it's like a Bret Hart or like a really good wrestler that's been champion all year, but they bring back Hulk Hogan for WrestleMania. And it's like nobody wants to like I get it appeals to the mainstream, but you know, the hardcore fans are going, no, we want Bret.
Yeah.
And like that's what it felt for me, was it kind of undid the work that they did in the first two in exchange for bringing back Palps. And I love, like, Emperor Palpatine is one of my favorite Star Wars characters. Like, don't make no bones about it. I love Ian McDiarmid. I was excited when I heard the laugh and the roll it again, all of that. But this movie made me like The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens less, and that's a bit of a bummer. But doesn't matter. I've got 6 other Star Wars movies I can go watch, and a lot of people don't agree with me on the prequels, and I quite enjoyed the prequels.
Yeah,
sorry.
I mean, you know, the OT. I mean, you know, I grew up with it. I love it. The prequels, I liked them. You know, I never had a problem with Jar Jar. It was, you know, he was there. He was there. Well, he was there for a reason. You know, he wasn't supposed to. It wasn't supposed to be like, you know, he's like the savior or whatever. He's there for kind of comic relief. He did whatever, you know, he did, whether it was racist or not. Who, you know, that's a whole other thing. Who knows what George was thinking about? You know, a lot of things in there, which at the time was fine.
I found the Neomodians more racist. Like when they started speaking, I remember in the cinema going, dude, like that nervous laugh of it's sort of like when I watch Hey Hey It's Saturday, and it's like, whoa. Like that's what I was like. It was like, well, I don't know about that accent, but you know, I think today it definitely wouldn't fly.
Yeah.
You know, like it's sort of, you know, we're allowed to grow as a society and go, you know, perhaps we should have called something else out. But with the Phantom Menace, I didn't realize it dragged a little until the 3D re-release. Like, think how long that was. And I was sitting there watching the pod race, and I know they added an extra lap, but I was sitting there going, I didn't realize this movie drags. Like, it's not so, because I always would watch it at home and it went pretty quick. I love Qui-Gon. Jar Jar doesn't bother me. I love Pelps in it. So yeah, I was never bothered by it. I love Darth Maul. But yeah, when I saw it there, it was like, okay, I can finally understand why people might go, this isn't their favorite Star Wars movie. But I don't know. I don't mind it. I'll still watch it once a year.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. Speaking of dragging, when I was having a talk with Shane, I think it was last week, I said how A New Hope kind of drags. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, nothing happens for the first 45 minutes. And he's like, well, you know, Vader comes on. I said, okay, after Vader comes on and the droids go, nothing happens then. Like, I mean, there's stuff that's driving the plot, but there's no action. So, you know, like from like a standpoint of something like that, like what do you just see a guy, you know, walking around with some robots and, you know, this or that. I mean, I love the movie, but I never really noticed it until some of our friends were talking about how that didn't grow up with the movie. We're like, well, it's kind of boring. And they're right. It's from an action standpoint, it's boring. There's a lot of, you know, plot being pushed in it, or, you know, we find out now that everything that we learned in that movie or a lot of that we learned in that movie isn't true. But, you know, at that time or growing up with it, it was,
I think,
you know.
I think that with the OT, the thing with our generation, Michael, is it's like a warm blanket. So, you know, we've grown up with it. It's just there. Like, you can put it on in the background and you don't even need to look, and you know what's going on. Or if the sound was down, like, you know, you just know it. Like, you could walk out of the room and come back in and feel like you've missed nothing. You've seen it so many times. So I think younger eyes, I could see how they'd look at it and go, it's a little plotting. You know, it's not really happening. But, you know, that's why we don't listen to younger people. And we don't take those opinions on board, and we dismiss them, and we gatekeep, as much as humanly possible.
That's all right. I don't know who's. Somebody's sending me a message. I don't know who they are. Hey Zach, how you doing? Not sure who you are, but okay.
Well, there you go. You've got a new friend.
Yeah, somebody that I know from when I lived in North Carolina, but I don't know who they are, so I don't remember. I was drinking a lot back then too, so I drank a lot. I drank a lot from my mid to early to mid teens. Oh, Joe, I know who it is now. Okay, yeah, I drink a lot. I drank a lot from my well, maybe before my teens even started, till a couple years ago. So, but yeah, I know who it is now. But yeah, it's I mean, that's my thing. It's like some of our friends got in with the Clone Wars. Corey got in with the Clone Wars, and Noah has only seen a couple episodes up until recently and started. Um, you know, Recently they started watching them, but it's like whatever you like, just you like Star Wars, you like Star Wars. It doesn't really matter, and you're going to talk about what talk about saving what you love, and the corny line. I mean, it is a corny line, but I mean, if you want to get into the psychology of it, and that that's another thing I like to do is get into Joseph Campbell and learning all about that, and that there's lines in there in the Joseph Campbell book from other people that it's like that line is pretty much verbatim from that book. So all the people that hate on that line, like that is George got a lot of his the hero's journey and everything from Joseph Campbell, along with a bunch of all of his other influences growing up as a kid. But it's like that's kind of what and it's just it kind of all ties together, and it's like you just kind of you gotta, in my opinion, you just kind of have to accept it. And if there's something you don't like, just don't watch the movie again. Like, I got no problem with you sitting here talking about how much you don't like The Rise of Skywalker because, you preface it or end it with, but if you like it, go ahead and like it. It's when people, if you were to talk about it like you did and then say you're a fucking idiot and never liked Star Wars if you like the movie, that's what the issue where it really comes in.
Yeah, look. If anything, I'm the idiot. But in most times. But yeah, I like the movie wasn't like. I finally, a part of me likes it in the. I'm charmed by it in. It was finally something Star Warsy I didn't like. And it was like for years I smugly was like, aha, people hated the prequels, but I liked them, so I'm the lucky one. I didn't particularly like the animated Clone Wars movie, but nobody really seems to count that as a cinematic Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
But like, this was the first time I was like, a Star Wars movie isn't for me. Where, something like, and I know Emily Lynn's listening, and I don't care. Solo, I loved. And I kept going back. I was the person that went back and kept seeing Solo, because to me, I felt Solo reminded me of a movie I would have adored as a teenager, or as a kid. It sort of just had that fun vibe. It was an easy watch. It was pretty fast paced. Like I really liked Solo. I'm a realist. Like, I get the people with the make Solo 2 happen, and like, God bless them and good luck. It didn't make enough money, and like, my hope is maybe we get a Disney Plus series coming out of it, and it sounds like we might, and that's pretty cool. But as much as I loved that movie and as much as it set something up, dollars talk. But unquestionably, Disney did a horrible marketing job with that movie, from ripping off the designs, those album covers that they repurposed for Solo. When they dropped the trailer, like, there was no good toy distribution or excitement or event for, like, Wookiee Wednesday was a non-event here in Australia, and I doubt it was much in America. Like, they really dropped the ball. So it hasn't all been smooth sailing, but I think, like, when I look at the sequel trilogy, it's my least favorite of the three trilogies, but there's no doubt I had a lot of fun during the journey of them coming out. You know what I mean? And I might go back and look back on them differently in a few years' time, but I enjoyed the journey of the sequel trilogy. Just the end result, they didn't stick the landing for me, and that's okay. You know, I you know, there's plenty of people that don't like Revenge of the Sith, and I can watch that movie a million times over. You know, it's all very different, and the novelization is good. I don't care what people think.
Yeah, the novelization's even better. I think
hate that book, and it's like, I don't know what I hate that book.
Well, because they add so much stuff from the movie that's not in the movie. But I mean, that's what, like my feeling on it is, like, the movies are the movies and they should be a complete thing. But the books, it's not filling in plot holes or whatever. It's like I said the other day to somebody, if I go and meet you and you tell me your life story that you want me to know, and now I know, for an hour, the 2 hours that you talk to me, your life story, and then I find out over the next couple of years of us being friends, all these other side stories that, well, how did this happen? That doesn't seem like it would be possible for you and your life or whatever. Just all these little things that add up, or, oh, I never understood why that happened, or, oh, you were divorced. I never knew that. It's like just things that you're not told. It's like, it doesn't mean you're making things up or changing the lives or whatever. I think that's kind of like what happens with the books, do with the movies. And then it's also people asking questions that don't need to be answered. I mean, if a lightsaber came out today, and in Star Wars, they never had lightsabers before, a lightsaber came out today, people would be up in arms. How does it work? It's impossible. Physics, it's impossible for a lightsaber to work. But, back when Star Wars came out, okay, that's what they told us. I mean, that's kind of how, when I went to go, I've seen every Disney era Star Wars movie with my dad. I always travel back to Buffalo at some point in time. It helps that my birthday's in February, and they always come out during Christmas or whatever it is. So I have that little window to make it back and a reason to do it. Which is another story too, because him and I didn't get along very well, and it's not that Star Wars brought us together, but it was kind of like an excuse to kind of, I was an asshole as a kid, and he treated me like an asshole because I was an asshole. So it's kind of like Star Wars kind of helped as a buffer for a while. But he's the same way. It's like, he's a Star Wars fan. He's seen all the movies. He's seen them all in the theaters. If it comes on TV, he'll turn it on. But he's never read a book. He's never read a comic book. He couldn't tell you anything about them. And he thinks, oh, the movie was great. Oh, they brought Palpatine back. Okay. Well, do you want to know how or what? Nope, I don't care. Because he's like
I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the Star Wars fan that, just like Star Wars, the movies, they don't care about everything else. But yeah, I think going back, I think the Last Jedi is my favorite movie. It's I call it, it's like the most Jedi of the Jedi movies, and the mysticism and like the philosophy and everything about that. But I loved Solo. I saw Solo in 4D opening night. So I was in the chair and I was moving around like a spaceship and everything. I also went to Good Morning America and saw the premiere of Solo. And the great thing about that, I was the only one there that was a Star Wars fan. There was one other person there that had on a Star Wars shirt, but they didn't even know there was a movie coming out. They sent me with this person. He's like, oh, yeah, I love Star Wars. And I was like, oh, okay. And I started talking to him. He's like, wait, what trailer? What are you talking about? And I was like, oh, the Solo movie. Oh, there's another movie coming out? And I was just like, so, I mean, that's all, there's a bunch of things that go into it, but I really think the marketing, when, anytime Good Morning America is going to show a trailer, you can't get tickets because there's Star Wars fans trying to get in there. And you can even see, whatever the next one is in a couple of years, in the crowd, there's going to be people in Star Wars. They don't let you wear costumes, but, Star Wars shirts or whatever it is. And, I'm the only one there. And I actually found...
yeah, it was...
Oh.
You there?
Yep, I'm here. I don't know if that was you or me.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not too sure. But I always say the sliding doors moment I'd love to see is what happens if Solo comes out a year after The Force Awakens and Rogue One comes out in the Solo slot. Like, what would happen? Like, what would have been the box office? Like, what would have happened? How would have it been received? You know, like it would have been almost made sense that you saw Han die, spoiler alert, and then the next movie you see is about a younger version of him. That would almost be poetic in a way of telling the story that way.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it like that. You know, and the other thing too about Solo is, you know, I mean, Emily doesn't like the movie, but there's a lot of people out there that. Well, don't tell her I said this, but I actually, you know, I kind of do value her opinion with certain things. Cause like I wouldn't be listening. I wouldn't know you if I didn't listen to her talk about you guys. But maybe that, you know what? Maybe that's the only good opinion she has. I don't know. You know, I'm not going to say that, but I guess that's kind of what you're implying. But
I'm absolutely saying it. Yes.
Okay. All right. I don't remember what the hell I was saying now. But yeah.
No,
so,
we were talking about the release of the movies.
Yeah. So Solo comes out, and a lot of people are saying, you know, why I never knew it was that good, and you know, why didn't anybody tell me? And you know, that's when it came out on DVD or came out on Netflix. Well, not DVD because people, but then it came out on Netflix. And people were like, oh my god, the movie was so good, no one told me. And then it came out on Disney Plus, and even people that are getting Disney Plus were like, the movie was so good, why didn't anybody tell me? And it's like, you know, the people that like Solo have been telling you how good the movie is, and no, you just didn't care. You're like, oh no, I'll wait for it to come out on on Netflix. I'll wait for it to come out. You know, whatever. I don't have Netflix. I'll wait for it to come out on Disney Plus when it comes out in a year. And
look, we're in a golden age that we have Disney Plus, and we can just turn on a. We will just be able to turn on and watch any Star Wars movie we want at any point in time. Like that's pretty cool.
And then speaking of Disney Plus, so what about Milan? How do you feel about that? Are you gonna spend the $30 to see it?
I don't think the price is unreasonable. Like when you factor in, if a few of you go to the cinema and buy food and stuff, it's comparable. It's an interesting experiment. I think it's the wrong movie to do the experiment with. Because I'm not sure how much demand there is for Milan. Although we saw Trolls World Tour sitting atop the charts forever, so you never know. And I think Milan looks cool. Like, I'd certainly watch it. But then you're hearing that it's going to be on Disney Plus in 3 months anyway. And then it's like, well, I'll just wait. And I don't know if those rumors are true. But you're also talking to somebody that will waste money on anything. So just for the sake of, I could picture myself sitting there going, no, I've got nothing to do. I'm just going to watch Milan. Bang, there's $30. But it's interesting that they're doing that with Milan. They didn't do it with Hamilton. And they're definitely holding back the Black Widow. And I felt Black Widow was the movie to test it on, because if any movie was going to motivate couples, and I guess they're trying to engage kids, but I'm not. I guess now that you've got me thinking about it, my wheels are spinning. Is what is Disney Plus and who is it for? Because they've chosen Milan. Like, if they choose Black Widow, does that really appeal to kids? Like, Black Widow, from the trailer I saw, doesn't seem like a kiddie movie.
No. Yeah.
So then they're hoping that your teens and your adults are going to be buying it. I guess they're gambling that parents buying Milan for kids is going to be more appealing than teenagers and adults buying something like Black Widow. or they might just want to keep Marvel in their cinemas and don't want to risk putting a Marvel movie direct to Disney Plus. It's a weird move. Like, it's weird.
I think it's definitely a kids thing, because if it like I would say Black Widow, I'm gonna get Milan when it comes out. I decided I was gonna when they announced it, and I was like, $30 isn't bad, especially New York City. You can find a cheap theater for $17 for a ticket. If you want to sit in a nice theater, or whatever, it's going to be $22, $23. Throw out a couple dollars for 3D or an IMAX. By the time I hop on the train and buy a ticket, it's going to cost me $30 anyways, and that doesn't even include getting food or whatever else. So, would I like to see it in the theater because it's more of an experience? You have the sound and the huge screen, definitely. But there's not one open right now, and I figured it would.
Just say it was Aladdin, right?
Mm-hmm.
The kids see the trailer. Will Smith, Freaky Genie is out there. You're going to get big songs and stuff. I've never seen the Milan animated movie, but I know there's a dragon in it, voiced by Eddie Murphy and stuff like that. And so that's the fun element of the movie and stuff. And from memory, and I could be wrong, that fun element wasn't in the trailer. So what's the hook for the kids?
There's no dragon in it. Not even a CGI or anything. It's her being a warrior, and it's elevated from a kid's cartoon to a girl's. I don't even think you can call it a woman, like a girl's empowerment movie versus a cartoon dragon movie that has to do with a girl. So I don't know until I see it. But then when I found out it was going to be in December, I was like, do I really want to see it that bad? And I was like, and like the deciding factor for me was I would go see, like, if it came out in theaters tomorrow and theaters in New York City were open, I would go see it.
Okay.
So that was kind of why I was like, okay, I'm going to get it. And it just gives me something to do, and I can. If it wasn't COVID time, maybe not. I mean, that's where a lot of things are up in the air now. It's like, they're experimenting with this to see, is this the right thing to do? I don't know when New York City theaters are going to be open. Broadway's not opening until after, into 2021. Broadway's not opening back up. So if they do that with all the theater, they haven't announced that for movie theaters, but if they do that with that, that means no movies for Christmas, no nothing, unless they kind of sneak in, okay, well, movie theaters a little bit, but that's where, that's, I don't know. That's a whole other conversation in itself.
So
because
in other states in Australia, cinemas have opened, not in Victoria where I am. And Tenet got released into the cinemas. So like people like Turbo and stuff have seen Tenet. But like, it's funny, like the cinemas, if I wore a mask and if they did social distance seating, the cinemas wouldn't bother me too much. But I'm not in New York City. It's I'm out in the foothills of the Dandenongs in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. I'm a long way away from things being packed. There's very low COVID cases where I am in particular. But I don't blame anybody that doesn't want to be in any form of crowded room until something like an immunization is sorted, or I don't know. It's yeah.
I'm at the point where I'm not saying if we want to, we should be able to. Like, that's not what I'm saying. Like, fuck the rules, whatever you're saying. If I want to, I should be able to. That's not what I'm saying at all. Because what they've done in New York City, went from thousands of cases a day to we're doing really good. We're only getting 200 cases a day now, being diagnosed. And it's like, that's really good. So you think about, like, you guys got 200 cases in a week and shut down. We're getting 200
Yeah.
You know, we're getting, so I mean, it's just like the RT value, or the RT ratio is under 1. It's like it's been at like 0.92 or 0.93, which means, you know, the how many people that are being infected, blah blah blah, all the science. So I mean, we're doing good. We got to get that lower, and you know, the big thing is going to be what happens. Our schools are opening next week, I think, or in a couple weeks. So the school's open. We got to see what happens with cases like that, and you know, I got COVID in April, and you know, I didn't get sick. I just had a hard time breathing, and the more that the summer progressed, the hotter the weather got, the more humid the weather got. You know, I have to use an inhaler. I can't walk up 2 flights of stairs to get to my apartment. Everything else is fine. I never really got sick. I was a little bit tired, and you know, I'm still going to the doctors for that. They have me on another round of steroids, and you know, I do those steroids for 2 weeks. Then I have 2 weeks off of them. Then I go back and they do another lung function test to see, you know, what the diminished capacity is, whatever percentage wise, and how I can do, and you know, whether or not I can go back to work, or if not, they told me that it'll be another round of 2 weeks, and then another 2 weeks being off, and then you know, then if that doesn't work, then they'll have to do something invasive. I don't know what the hell you do that's invasive for, you know, when you have basically what happens is I had an infection in my lungs, and because you know, you can't rest your lungs are always breathing. It takes so long for them to get better.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so that's where I am. Like my doctor said, if it was your wrist, you don't use your wrist. Well, you have to use your wrist. So it's like if you go out and keep playing tennis, it's never going to get better. So we got to figure out how to put a splint on your lungs so that they heal. But you know,
I'd have so much trouble if they told me I couldn't use my wrist.
That's why you have 2. You can cheat on yourself.
I'm not ambidextrous. Michael, look, I've got to cut this short and go.
Right.
Apologies. But it's been fun chatting. I appreciate you having me on. And
it was wonderful, man.
Yeah, I hope. Look, I'm sure everybody's going to be excited by you vamp before the main event turns up. But yeah, I hope you get better soon, because you know, like, you're an example of COVID's real, and just because it's not necessarily killing everybody, it doesn't mean that it's not having effects on everybody. And just wear your mask, people, and chill out and take it easy. And if you're stressed out, hopefully you can get lost in some nerd stuff. Hopefully we get a Mando season 2 trailer at some point if Disney decide they want to maybe promote their event, their show that's coming up in a month's time. But yeah, it's yeah, thank you, man. Much appreciated.
Oh, I appreciate you coming on. It was, you know, it was a blast. I had a good time.
Yep, good to finally chat. But yeah, I am a night shift worker, and I am well into the point of turning into a vampire. So if I don't get some sleep, it's gonna be a disaster. But to all the people listening, thanks for having me as well. And yeah, we'll speak again soon.
All right, Chris. Thank you very much.
No worries. Take care.
All right, everyone. That was Chris Fresh from the Geek Dudes podcast and Hey podcast. We didn't even get to talk about that because there's just, you know, so much to talk about. That's Hey It's Saturday is one of the an Australian show, and it was on in the 90s, and it's a trip listening to them talk about it every week in the episodes, and then find clips of it and everything on YouTube. So go check him out there, and you can find that on Twitter and maybe Facebook too. I don't know. I'll find out. But if you look at the notes will be there. With that, I say good day. May the force be with you.